The penultimate round of the NRL season is upon us. Round 26, baby. And there are some matchups that definitely promise to deliver. So let's talk about them. What's going on, casual athletes? It's your boy Burgz here to hit you again with another tipping and predictions video. This week, we've got round 26 up on the card, and I'll tell you what, there are some very interesting matchups going into round 26, the penultimate round of the NRL season. Can you believe it? It has been a stellar opening 25 rounds, and I cannot wait to see what happens in the finals. If you haven't already, guys, please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. The link is in the description, and we're happy to answer any of your questions on any of those platforms. So please give us some of your burning questions, especially for the NRL final season. Oh, I can't wait, guys. Let's get into it. First of all, let's take a look back at how we did last week with our tips. I got 6 out of 8 tips correct, and I'm going to tell you what annoyed me the most about Thursday night's game, the Cowboys. I let my heart get in the way. The Cowboys have won 1 out of the last 10 games against the Sharks, and I probably should have looked at that a bit closer. I think I just wanted the Cowboys to win this game, and I'm happy to own up to that one. That is 100% on me, and yeah, they just didn't turn up, and the Cowboys ended up getting blown out by 20 there. Sharks, though, got to give credit to them. They were clinical, especially down the middle. Cowboys had a very good completion rate, but just couldn't get anything going defensively. They couldn't stop the Sharks rampaging down the middle. Their forwards were outstanding. Toby Rudolph had a fantastic game, and Hines took over the game late as well. Cannot go past without mentioning Connor Tracy as well. He should be playing first grade in a regular spot, whether it be for the Sharks or another team. I've been saying it for a while. I am a Newtown Jets fan. It is nice to see him play for the Jets, but I think his talent is worthy of a starting role in an NRL side, whether it be 5'8", fullback, center, wing. He can play the entire back line, maybe not halfback. I haven't really seen him play much halfback, but I got to tell you, he is an exciting talent and needs to play somewhere. Moving on, the Warriors made this game a little bit difficult against the Sea Eagles. I thought the Sea Eagles were actually going to win this game at one point. Saab grabbing 3 tries, DWZ grabbing 3 tries. It was very end-to-end football, a lot of points put up. I'm a bit worried about the Warriors' defense heading into the finals. They're kind of reminding me about the Cowboys last year, how the Cowboys came out, stunned everyone. No one really took them seriously. And yeah, their defense was probably what made them so potent, so awesome as a prospect going into that final series. They managed to win 1 game. The Warriors, they're kind of trending the same way. They're leaking a fair few more points. 2 teams that they probably shouldn't at this stage of the game. And yeah, I'm a bit worried about them, but they will get a second chance. They're going to finish in the top 4 as the Cowboys did last year. I like to make comparisons with my own team, but they're very reminiscent of those 2022 Cowboys, but got the win here. Sean Johnson, again, just iced the game with a nice field goal. I think the Warriors pack was just a little bit better than Manly. They're down on a few troops at the moment and just couldn't really get a full 80 minutes out of the players that they had available. And yeah, it's tough on Manly fans, especially the way the game finished with Ruben Garrick potentially getting injured there at the back end. No penalty given. I was okay with the call, but we'll see what happens in the aftermath of that. I expect a few phone calls to be made, and maybe Graham Annesley will have to turn up and explain that one a little bit better, just so Manly fans can have a little bit more peace of mind. Eels, yeah, didn't think that they were winning that game at all, especially with Mitchell Moses out. I thought Dylan Brown actually looks a bit better, stepping up into that number 1 playmaking role. He seems to take over the team quite well. I thought in the early stages, Parramatta actually looked the better of the 2 teams. And the Roosters came out in the second half and just blew them away. But I think Parramatta can take a few positives out of that. They may not be able to take any positives out of it from a salary cap standpoint, where if Mitchell Moses is out and Dylan Brown is demanding money everywhere else, then you might have to look at what they need to do there to fit him into the salary cap so that they can keep him in that role. But yeah, I thought for a guy who's in his early 20s has had a lot to deal with this year, definitely showed up. The problem with it is that Parramatta have just got a lot of injuries this year. They have had a lot of injuries for the entire year. It was good to see RCG back out on the field. He played pretty well. Junior had a better game than I thought he has had in recent weeks, but yeah, it's just not enough. I think the Roosters are the better side, and that's why they won this game. They're the better side at the moment, and that's what you had to take this game as a fan tipping this game. For the Roosters, Teddy may not be in next week, which is a huge blow to them, but they've got Joey Manu stepping up into the fullback position, and I don't think they're going to lose too much on that front, but we'll see what happens with Teddy. When we get into this week's tips. The Tigers, thank God the Tigers got over the line here. Api Coruscant, you absolute weapon. Thank you so much for everyone who tipped the Tigers in this game. And I said it previously, they were just due a win. They needed to break the streak somehow. And an Api Coruscant kick from 30 meters out on the sideline, I can't think of a better way for them to get a victory there, and they managed to hold out the rampaging Dolphins at the end. I feel sorry for the Dolphins. They've lost a fair few games by one score or less. It's tough when you're an up and coming team and you're losing such close games, but they can take some positive energy out of that and channel it into next year where they are getting some really good players coming to their roster. So I know this one sucked for Dolphins fans, but keep your heads up. It's not going to be too bad of a transition into next year, especially with those players coming through. Penrith getting the win against the Titans. Yes, I do think that the Titans early looked quite good. They had the lead for a period of time, but I always thought Penrith were just going to, steamroll them in the end. I just didn't think that the Titans had enough gas in the tank. They had Brimson back in the team. That was great. I'm a bit worried about what happened with Jaden Campbell. Seemed to be a non-contact injury. And, everyone's heart stops when that always happens. So hopefully it's not terrible news. I don't think he'll play next week, but he was looking phenomenal. The one thing I do love in this game, I picked the margin, 26. So that is good for me in terms of close matchups, especially towards the back end of the season when I'm getting 0 for my margin. It just helps a lot, especially when you're trying to catch up. And the margin is a good tiebreaker, having one game where we have to tip the margin each and every week. The fact that I picked this week to do so towards the back end of the season, even though we slid back a little bit this week, 63 rank overall, 54 last week. So, yeah, we slipped back a little bit, but I think we didn't lose anything on our margin, which is, phenomenal work. Dragons Storm. I got to tell you, I thought the Dragons were going to get home in this game. They actually, over the last month or so, have not been playing that bad football. And the Storm really took a long time to get going and secure this victory. Katoa had a fantastic game. He set one try up and also scored 2 himself. Jarome Hughes was outstanding and ended up being, I think, the difference in this game. Ben Hunt also had a very good game. And Tyrell Sloan, every single time he got the ball, I thought he looked dangerous. He's definitely come into his own in this year, having a full year to really own that number 1 spot. Last year, there was a bit of conjecture with Hook as the coach, and now he's got a bit of freedom to kind of make that spot his own, and he's done that this year. But unfortunately, they couldn't get the win here, and it's good for the Storm because they stay in the top 4 with that win. The Knights downing the Rabbitohs. I was a bit disappointed in the Rabbitohs' performance in this game. I just think that they're better than this. They are one of those teams where they have one of the best rosters in the NRL on paper, and it looks so good. Latrell, Cody, Cook, Murray, we've all spoke about it before, but this Knights team, 7 in a row. I cannot take anything away from them, and I do not know why I keep doubting them on a weekly basis. Congrats to you, Knights fans. You deserved a little bit of success as opposed to what was happening earlier in the season. Kalen Ponga, we did not know what his future was looking like at one stage with the head knocks and him playing at 6. It just looked a shambles, but they have got their act together and they are absolutely storming into the finals. And I can tell you, they're going to be a bit of a threat for those teams, especially at the bottom of the 8. If you draw the Knights, I'd be a little bit worried. They've got strike all over the park. Their forward pack is decent. Halves, Yeah, I think Gamble and Clune are probably not the best halves to go with. Hopefully, Jackson Hastings can get fit. But then again, Ponga is possibly the best player in the comp at the moment. And that is something that you want to bank on if you're a Knights fan. For the Rabbitohs, I kind of hope that they continue on this trajectory where we can get that uh, match up with the Roosters in a couple of weeks. But I think Latrell and Tane Milne showing a little bit of ill discipline, little bit of niggle that just got a bit out of hand, a bit of frustration coming in there, not being able to get the win, and maybe it's not going their way this year, and a bit of a dummy spit can sometimes lead to what we saw on the weekend, which is just not it's not profitable for the Rabbitohs and where they want to be. And no doubt Jason Demetriou will be disappointed with that performance. Moving on to our last game of the round, guys, we had the Raiders taking on the Dogs. I did pick this one again. I do think the Raiders were, again, unconvincing. I've got to tell you, I could have seen the Dogs winning this game and I wouldn't have been surprised. So, yeah, that's how I kind of feel on the Raiders right now. I don't want to dump on them too much, but again, they get torched by a pretty decent team last week and then turn up this week and can't really hold the Dogs to less than, let's say, 10, 16 points, which is probably a good defensive performance that you'd want to go into the finals. But they scored a lot of points. I mean, even without Jack White, and they got the job done. So it was a little bit tougher for them. But yeah, I mean, the win essentially means nothing to me. It means 2 points for the Raiders, but doesn't give them any agency as far as where they sit in this finals race. I think they're going to be one of those teams that you want to draw heading into the finals. They just seemed a little bit soft, leak far too many points, and that showed last week against the Storm, who then this week let the Dragons score 28 points. So, yeah, I mean, the Raiders, let's see what happens with them, and we'll move on to the tips for this week, guys. And I tell you what, there's a couple that I'm really interested to see how they play out. We have the Panthers taking on the Eels up first at Bluebet Stadium. And I got to tell you, the matchups over the last, let's say, 3 years, these teams have played each other 10 times in the last 3 years, with Penrith winning 6 of those games, including last year's final. But Para, as we know, got a very good win in Golden Point earlier in the season. I just don't see a world where a Mitchell Moses less Eels can get over the line here against Penrith. They've got a few players coming back. Hopefully Isaac Tango comes back after his injury. Hopefully we get Mitch Kenny back as well. I think they lack a little bit of defensive prowess on the edges, and Isaac Tango is really good at shutting those plays down. I think he could have made a bit of a difference, and maybe the Titans wouldn't have scored as many points. But yeah, I think that Penrith should get this game done pretty handily. Eels, they get Sean Lane back. They also get just checking here. They get no one else back, just Sean Lane. So that's fine. I think for Sean, he kind of needs to come in and just finish off the year, as do the Eels. The Eels need to finish off the year strong. They're not going to make the finals at this point. I'm a bit disappointed, and I think a lot of Parramatta Eels fans would be disappointed. I know a lot of them. That the team that made the grand final last year can't even make the 8 this year, and probably the worst season under Brad Arthur's management at this point in time. So, yeah, it sucks for Eels fans, but we move on, and hopefully they can get well rested next year, come back with a better game plan, and they won't have the hooker situation. They've got the whole off season to figure out who their hooker is going to be, and Josh Hodgson, I think I said at the start of the year in our previews, was not the answer, and yeah, it's proving itself to be the case at the moment. Moving on to the Warriors Dragons. The Dragons, I tell you what, they looked impressive against the Storm, and I won't take away from them too much in this game, but the Warriors are that team that are doing just enough each and every week to get a win at the moment. Close win last week, close win this week. Yeah, I'm on the Wars train, but I just don't know how much steam it's got to get to the end of the line or get to the station, I really need to see a dominant performance from them against a team that is outside the top 8, as are the Dragons. So this week could be that week. For the Warriors, they get Mitchell Barnett back. Hopefully that shores up a bit of the issues that are lingering around their middle forward rotation. Curran came on and was quite good last week, but I think him coming off the bench is very interesting. Marata Niokore was a bench player at Parramatta, was quite good off the bench. So I don't know whether you want to switch that around. They're pretty interchangeable, those two. And on the other side, Jackson Ford has had a fantastic year. For the Dragons, they should get Zach Lomax back and Jaden Sullivan. Jack DeBellin has to wait one more week for his suspension as well. I think despite a few outs that they've had, with Jaden Sewer being out, Jack Bird is also out with DeBellin. Zach Lomax, I think that the Dragons' other players are stepping up. As I said before, Tyrell Sloan, fantastic game. I think Billy Burns had the game of his career. Scored 2 tries and made a great break that should have led to another try. So, I think with the Dragons, it's just about retaining that form. It didn't work against a quality side in the Storm, but the Warriors are new to this game. They're new to the quality performances that you need to see from a top 4 side. That being said, I am going to pick them this week, but it is basically on the status that I need to probably pick a lot of favorites to stay in contention for comps this week. And that's something that if you're at the top of your comps, picking favorites most weeks, while it's not, I guess, the most exciting move or it's the cowardly play, if you're ahead in the comp, you don't need to. You did enough. I've only gotten 38 tips wrong this entire season. So, you just need to sit up from the top and wave down and say, hey, boys, try and catch me. You pick the upsets this week. So I am going to go with the Warriors. I do think they win this game, though. They're just too much quality for the Dragons, and they can be a little bit inconsistent, the Dragons, as well. Moving on to our next game, we have the Dolphins taking on my North Queensland Cowboys. And I tell you, the Cowboys just look tired right now. They played late into the competition last year. They had a slow start to this year. It looked like it was turning around. It just not is materializing for me. I think they're going to miss the top 8, and I hate saying that. I absolutely hate saying it. But with the Roosters having very favorable matchups and the Rabbitohs with the bye this week, it's tough to get us to see a way forward. I just think that the Cowboys need to rest, recoup, and regroup. If they make it into the 8, I will be happy, obviously. I love seeing my team in the finals, especially with a shot to win it. As the Cowboys are, they are one of those teams that can make a run. We've seen them do it before, but I just don't think there's too much more to explain. They are the favourites in this game, although the Dolphins did beat us early in the year, so we'll see how that goes. I expect it to be another close one, though, for the Dolphins. Even though with the Cowboys, they can put on points in a hurry. I expect this game to be quite close. So I'm actually going to go an 8-point margin there. I think the Cowboys are close for a long period of time. Maybe there's a 2-point difference between the two teams. And then we get that final try to secure the win, and we go up by 8. Moving on to our next game, we have the Storm taking on the Titans. Now, in the last 10 games between these two teams, the Titans have won twice, although that does include the game that they beat the Storm in earlier this year, 38-34. Big high-scoring game. Do I expect it to be similar this week? Probably not. Titans have a fair few out players at the moment, especially Jaden Campbell. Tanner Boyd has been spoken about before. Kieran Foran may be back for this game. Whether that helps or not, I'm not too sure. And Jojo Fafita should also come back in. They lost Campbell and Philip Sami during last week's game, so that's tough. Sami's had a pretty good year, and Jaden Campbell's always an excitement machine. With the Storm, they should be unchanged apart from Ryan Pappenhausen coming in this week. I do expect him to be named on the bench. Just as that X-factor player, you never know what Ryan, especially if he comes back and is anywhere near where he used to be. he can definitely help them put on a fair few points, which is why I'm going to go the Storm this week. I just don't see the Titans winning this game at all, especially down at Amy Park. It's it's a long way for the Titans to go and get a win that, yeah, I suppose puts them in a decent position. I mean, I don't think they can finish higher than 13th right now. I do feel like the Titans have been better than 13th. They've lost a lot of close games, gave up a lot of first half leads this year. So, yeah, I feel bad for the Titans, but yeah, I think 13 is a little bit of an insult as to how they've played this year. They've gotten some pretty big wins as well, including the Storm and the Cowboys a few weeks back. So, that no one expected them to win those games. That's why I highlighted them. Yeah, I just think that they can't really win this game. And unfortunately, it's going to be another good win for the Storm. Hopefully, Ryan Pappenhausen has a good comeback game as well. Moving on to the Roosters versus the Tigers. The Roosters have dominated this fixture in recent times. It's been an absolute cakewalk for them. They've won 9 out of the last 10 games against the Tigers, especially the last time that they met. It was 72-6 last year in August. So it'll be, a year since that turnaround for the Tigers. They did play very well last week, but the Roosters are running kind of hot right now. I think that Sam Walker coming back into the team potentially is something they might not want to mess with. I think Hutchison's been doing a pretty decent job the last couple of weeks. Their kicking game is still horrendous. The Eels just couldn't match it because they didn't have Mitchell Moses. I think Moses would have made a big difference in the kicking game. Keary just can't kick. And then, Hutcho probably has been out of the kicking duties for a long period of time and hasn't played a lot of halves since his younger days. But I'm going to tip them this week. I do think that the Tigers, they got their win, and that's great. That's their grand final, but it took a monumental effort from maybe Coruscant to get him over the line. Still unsure about whether Luke Brooks plays. It is a bit touch and go at the moment. I think maybe he will want to play, considering it'll be his last couple of games in a Tigers jersey. He could do the Benji Marshall and come back towards the end of his career. Well, anything can happen. Anything's possible, as cliche as that is for me to say. I'm wondering if Jarrell Rea-Hargraves comes back for the Roosters. He pulled out a little bit late last week, and then Teddy should be out for this game because of the Category 1 that he was given for that HIA as well. So Manu moves to fullback, and I think he has probably one of his best games of the season against the Tigers. Last time he went into fullback earlier this year, he ran for over 250 meters. So that's what you're going to get out of Joey Manu when he moves to fullback. Roosters getting that win there. Now, very interesting matchup here for me with the Raiders and the Broncos. Broncos will have a week off. You'd like to think that they're very well rested, but Adam Reynolds is going to be out for this game. We already know that. The last time they didn't have Adam Reynolds, they put on an absolute clinic and surprised a fair few of the pundits. So wondering whether they can do that again. I know I've trashed the Raiders a fair bit in my opening of the show, but I do think that the Raiders can win this game. They've already beaten the Broncos this year. They know what it takes, and they've dominated this matchup especially in the last 5 games. They've won 4 out of the last 5. Prior to that, Brisbane won 6 in a row. But we're going to ignore that and go with the Raiders to get a monumental upset and down me and my expectations of them. And we're going to lock that Raiders tip in right there. No, we're not. We're going to go over to the Broncos and tip them very comfortably. Wondering if Jack Whiten comes back as well. Seemed to pull out pretty late from the last game. So this is, 6-day turnaround for him? I don't know. We'll see whether he comes back. But, I just think Broncos get this one done and move ever closer to getting their first minor premiership for some time. So go Broncos. Yeah. Next up, we have the Dogs taking on the Seagulls. The Dogs, they were pretty... Well, they scored a lot more points than they did the previous week, but again, wasn't enough. They seem to they're just an open faucet right now. Whoever wants to come in and score, let's score. If you go back and you look at some of the Dogs' performances this year, it's just been horrendous from a defensive point of view. I just think that Serraldo, the king of defensive shape, and he was basically the two-time premiership winning defensive coach for the Penrith Panthers, has not fixed the Dogs' defense whatsoever. 36 points last week, and again, they're going into a game where the Seagulls could probably tout them up as well and put on 40 plus. So I'm going to go with the Seagulls. They get a fair few players back as well, the Seagulls. I mean, a bit unsure about Ruben Garrick, but they should get Ben Trebojevic, Tui Pilotu. Cooper Johns will be available for this game, although I don't think he will play based on Jake Arthur's performance last week. And Brad Parker should also be back for this game. So, yeah, I think the Seagulls get this one done pretty comfortably. Again, I just think the Dogs are lucky that they won a few games earlier in the season. Otherwise, they'd be a little bit closer to the bottom of the 8 there. I almost think that they have been possibly the worst team this year, or shown the worst form for me. They got a couple of good wins against the Dolphins and a few other teams, but yeah, I just don't know where it's going to go for the Dogs. They need to be better, and I don't know where it's going to come from. Then we're going to move on to the Knights taking on the Sharks. Now, possibly the hardest game of the round to tip. The Knights coming in on the back of a 7-game winning streak. If you told me that that was going to happen 2 months ago, I would have laughed you out of the room. I think the Knights are just stellar right now. They're playing some awesome football. Not to take anything away from their opponents, but yeah, to come out and beat the teams that they've beaten, Storm, they've beaten the Rabbitohs, who are considered a premiership contender as well. Yeah, they beat them quite comfortably too. I just don't know if there's any team that can put enough points on to put a bit of pressure on the Knights. It'll be about whether the Sharks hold up defensively. This is probably two of the form teams right now. I know the Knights have won more games in a row, but the Sharks have looked sharp recently, especially in the last 3-4 games. I'm actually going to go the outsiders this week. I think the Sharks end the streak. I just think that they're pushing for a top 4 spot, and the Knights can rest easy knowing now that they are going to be in the top 8, to be completely honest. I do see Ponga having a pretty good game, but I just think that the Sharks' middles are a little bit stronger. I know the Saifidi brothers and Leo Thompson are stepping up recently, but I've got a weird feeling about this Sharks side. I do think that they can go up to McDonald Jones Stadium and surprise them and get a bit of a win here. Maybe give the Knights a bit of a wake-up call to know, wow, okay, so this is finals football, and we are going to need to improve if we are going to be any chance of winning a comp. I keep doubting the Knights again. I hope it doesn't come back to bite me, because I'm looking to get hopefully another perfect round this week and improve my chances. But that is my tips this week, guys. So we are going to Penrith against the Eels. We're going Warriors against the Dragons. We are Cowboys against Dolphins. We are Storm against the Titans. We are taking the Roosters against the Tigers. The Broncos against the Raiders. The Seagulls against the Dogs, and we are taking the Sharks against the Knights. That is it for this week's video, guys. Let me know what you think about my tips down in the comment section below. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you on the next one.